Chat room is open, so if you want to say hello and let us know where you are watching from, you can. And we're going to get started in just under a minute. We're just going to let everybody sign in. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Ronnie, and I am one of the bloggers here at Romance by the Book. And we are so super excited that you are joining us today for our Sugar and Spice event. It is going to be wonderful, festive, fun with just a little bit of spice and naughtiness in it. Before we get started, I just have a few quick thank yous and just some housekeeping items to go over. First, I'd like to thank Gabrielle, who is helping out in the back end to make sure that the event runs smoothly, Kayleigh, who is going to be moderating tonight's event, and I would like to thank Tessa and Jenny for joining us tonight. We are going to be talking about two wonderful books, Duke Actually and Window Shopping. And our independent bookseller for tonight is A Different Drummer Books. I will put that information in the chat room and up on Facebook. But if you're not from around our area or even in Canada, just go out and find those local independent bookstores, especially during the holiday season. They really do appreciate your business. There's going to be a live Q&A with the audience at the end of the event. There are 3 different ways that you can submit your questions. The first is if you're watching on Zoom, you can use the chat room, or you can use the Q&A section. If you are watching from Facebook, you can just put your questions in the comment section, and I will bring them over to Zoom. Without further ado, I would love to introduce the wonderful Kayleigh Platz. Kayleigh is a lifetime writer and avid reader who is passionate about library advocacy. She spends her days writing about people far smarter than herself for the Institute of Quantum Computing. At night, she tells stories to her cat. Hopefully one day, other people will read those stories as well. As I said before, Kayleigh is one of the bloggers at Romance by the Book and has like the most Christmas background ever. I'm so impressed.
Thank you, Ronnie. I know I am ready for Christmas. We're getting a little bit of snow here tonight. It's a little cool and chilly, so it's the perfect night to curl up with a wonderful holiday romance to keep you warm. Tonight, we're going to talk to 2 of my favorite authors who have written 2 of my favorite Christmas books for the year. And I'm really, really pumped to sit and talk with them about their books, their writing habits, what they're reading right now. If you do have questions, I know Ronnie already said, throw your questions in the Q&A because we want to get to as many as we can. But without further ado, what I'm going to do is introduce Tessa and Jenny. So first up, I have Tessa, who is a New York Times bestselling author. Tessa Bailey can solve all problems except for her own. So she focuses those efforts on stubborn, fictional, blue-collar men and loyal, lovable heroines. She lives on Long Island, avoiding the sun and social interactions, then wonders why no one has called. Dubbed the Michelangelo of dirty talk. I love that phrase so much. She was dubbed that by Entertainment Weekly. Tessa writes with spice, spirit, swoon, and a guaranteed happily ever after. You can catch her on TikTok at author Tessa Bailey, and I highly recommend you follow her there. Welcome, Tessa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
We are very excited. Now we have to bring Jenny up. Jenny Holiday is a USA Today bestselling and Rita-nominated author whose books have been featured in the New York Times, Entertainment Weekly, the Washington Post, and National Public Radio. She grew up in Minnesota and started writing at age 9 when her 4th grade teacher gave her a notebook to fill with stories. When she's not working on her next book, she likes to hang out with her family, watch other people sing karaoke, and throw theme parties. A member of the House of Slytherin, she lives in London, Ontario, Canada. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we were talking beforehand, before this event started, and I said I was going to challenge both of you because we're going to talk about the book. We will not talk spoilers, don't worry anyone. But I did say I was going to ask both of you to give me your Twitter elevator pitch about what your latest book is. So Tessa, I'm going to throw it to you first and ask you to tell me about window shopping.
So my elevator pitch for window shopping is Dirty Ted Lasso. That's it.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you. I was writing a completely different book and threw it out because I just became consumed with that show, and more specifically, just Jason Sudeikis and his character. And I really just, all I could think about was writing a good guy. I wanted to write a nice guy who has a dirty streak. Because that's what I imagine Ted Lasso to be. So it's kind of, it's about a department store owner who falls in love with the ex-convict window decorator that he hires to give a second chance. And it's a kind of like Hallmark After Dark is what a lot of people are calling it.
Thank you. I like that. I like that Hallmark After Dark phrase. Jenny, you are up. Tell me about Duke.
Yeah, we were talking before about that we were going to do this, and I said I would do a bad job at it. So FYI. No, Duke actually is about the best man and maid of honor in a royal wedding. Their best friends are getting married, and he's a playboy Duke who is a really nice guy who's been a bit mischaracterized, and she is a very prickly, not quite divorced, totally over men New Yorker. And this is set in a Hallmark-esque fictional alpine micronation.
I don't know if, well, I'm sure you have seen all of the Hallmark movies, but every time, Jenny, your characters fly into Alobia, I think of the classic, I don't know if it's Netflix, but they all use the same pine tree shot for every film that goes into a royal place. And I think of that is, you've got the Netflix zoom in every time. Yep, that's right. So both of you are successful authors with a long list of must-read books. Why Christmas books?
Jenny, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
First.
The story of these books is actually comes literally from watching Hallmark Christmas movies. I would say I'm a fan of them, but I'm not I'm not a super fan of them, I guess. I'll watch them if they're on, but who is a super fan of them is my dad. And as far as I know, you guys can correct me, I don't think that you can get the Hallmark channel in Canada. Anyway, I don't have it. I don't have cable. But he devours these movies, and unapologetically, it's delightful. And I was visiting him a few years ago at Christmas, and he's like the most guileless person that there is, and he can never see his way through to, he's always very worried about how is this going to work out? Are they going to make it over these obstacles and get together? And he kind of frets about it. And he, at the same time, is also amazed that I can usually, obviously we know they're going to live happily ever after, but I can usually kind of map the big plot beats before they happen. So we had a little binge fest once a few years ago, and I just kind of almost on a whim, as a joke to myself, as a dare, I thought, well, I wonder if I could write a Hallmark type book, except the way I write, which is, steamier and snarkier. And so they became sort of like meta Hallmark books. They were sort of unapologetically tropey and Christmassy, but with like a level of like winky wink self-awareness about it. I hope that's what I was aiming for anyway. So that's why I just was kind of like a whim, kind of a joke. Not like I didn't take the book seriously, but it started as a joke.
And Tessa, what about you?
I think it was mostly just the timing of like when I had an opening in my schedule and when I could get it done. And I was like, Christmas would be great. And then last year I kind of fell in love with Christmas, because I think well, maybe not last year, probably the year before. Last year was, tough, but my husband was in the hospital last Christmas. But the year before, I kind of think as a mom or like as just an adult person, like you really, like Christmas just kind of becomes this thing that's work, like you are like cooking for everybody, or you're going somewhere, you're driving and you're driving back, and then you're cleaning and you're, making sure the presents are wrapped, and it just kind of becomes like work. But then the movie Elf, I watched the movie Elf, and that end scene like really reminded me why I love Christmas so much. When they all start singing, I'm gonna I will get choked up talking about it, but like when they all sing Santa Claus is coming to town, and they all and then like it powers the sleigh, and then they all see him like Santa and Buddy fly overhead. It sounds so corny saying it out loud, but like it's really that scene makes me so happy. And I think I kind of like have fallen back in love with Christmas a little bit. And Fifth Avenue is where this takes place in New York City. And it takes place specifically like those big Bergdorf, like Macy's, Saks, like those big department store windows. And if anybody's been there, it really is magical. And I've only lived in New York since I was 18, but I came here every single year before that because my father's family was from here. And we always would go to the Fifth Avenue windows on Christmas Day. We would drive down Fifth Avenue. And like, that's just the epitome of Christmas to me. So it was really cool to write something set there.
Both of you have big city storylines, and I'm going to come back to it, but I am tying in Elf, which I still choke up. I think it's been out almost now, and I still choke up at the end, Tessa. But Love Actually is also another Christmas movie that I know has been divisive for some people, and we aren't going to get into a debate of pros and cons of Love Actually. But what I wanted to talk about was the inspiration of Love Actually, Jenny, and the inspiration of Love Actually in Duke.
So the truth actually, so I mean, I'm quite happy to talk about the controversy surrounding Love Actually if we want to. And I actually don't have a super strong opinion. I'm not a big fangirl of that movie. My sister is. I've seen it a few times, and anyway, I guess we won't get into that. So why is the book Duke Actually? The book is Duke Actually. This is the honest to God truth. It wasn't at all in the first draft. And we were kind of trying to think of titles. And it's kind of hard to title books that are meant to be kind of modern rom-coms, but also signify royalty and Christmas and all the kind of things we wanted to cover. And again, almost like as a joke, I was like, what about Duke Actually? It kind of like plays with a Christmas movie, and you get the sort of punniness that sort of, I hope, signifies that it's, kind of a fun modern book. So then I went back in and I kind of wrote the references to the movie later.
And now I kind of want to throw out, do we want to have a quick chat about Love Actually?
Oh, sure.
Now I want to know both of your opinions.
What's the controversy? Is it because of the Emma Thompson storyline?
I think it's a lot of the storylines if you watch them today, they really don't stand up. They're pretty
the Colin Firth
sexist and gross. And,
ooh, I gotta go back and watch it. I haven't seen it.
Watch it, you'll be surprised. But I guess I do have an elevator pitch about Love Actually, because I do get asked this a lot. I think two things. One, Love Actually is not a rom-com. It has a lot of the things that rom-coms have. So people think it's a rom-com, but it's not a rom-com. It's a story about love and all its different guises, but really ultimately, like, the romance in it is pretty tragic. Even the ones that work out at the end of the movie, we know, I mean, a rational person wouldn't look at those and think that's a long-term good bet. That's my opinion. But the other thing about Love Actually is there's not a lot of movies that we expect to endure for decades. You know what I mean? Like modern classics, there's not that many of them. So of course it doesn't stand up because it's really old. Having said that, I do think that like at the end of that movie, I haven't seen Elf, that's embarrassing to admit, but the end of Love Actually, where there's the voiceover and the people reuniting at the airport and the line about when you look around, love is actually everywhere. I mean, that gets me. I think that's like a lovely sentiment that endures.
Agreed.
Jenny, your homework now is to watch Elf.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
It's lovely.
Pure joy. Yeah.
And you know, Lindy West has a essay called Shit Actually that I didn't know about till this book was already in copy edit. So I decided not to read it because I thought she's so great that she would probably give me a panic attack about my choice of book titles. But you know, there's a lot of people who like to hate on Love Actually, and I see I get where they're coming from.
Okay, so I'm going to ask both of you. Tessa, you've already talked a little bit about New York City, but New York City is kind of another secondary character almost in both of your books. And New York City at Christmas, I have been lucky to be there a few times. It is a magical experience. The city really puts out shows its best little leg, I think, during the holiday season. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about both of you, because I did love that you both reversed that trope of, you know, big city girl goes to small town and has to change her life to save her uncle's Christmas cafe. You have kept these women. I mean, Danny goes between a couple different places in the book, but your two main heroines, they're New York girls. Well, Stella becomes a New York girl. And so I just wanted to open the floor and have you chat about New York and the role of it as a character in your books. And maybe Tessa, I will throw it over to you.
Yeah, I think I think New York, it definitely, it's like you don't even have to describe it anymore to people, because just saying New York, it just sets the tone, you know, like it sets, you know, where you are, the sights and the sounds and the, you know, the kind of absurdity of it is, it's like, it just creates a whole atmosphere, just that word, the words alone, New York City. But I think, I love writing in New York City just because anything's possible. I mean, and that's, you know, that's kind of it just goes hand in hand with the magic of Christmas, that, you know, like Christmas miracles, and in New York City, literally anything can happen, anything can change at the drop of a hat. And so it just kind of opens up, I don't know, it opens up it opens up to possibilities. Just the fact that it's in New York City alone. And it also, I think a girl making it in New York City is kind of, I don't know, it's something that we all dream about. It's something I dreamed about as a child growing up, coming to New York City and it being hard and making it anyway. And actually that is kind of what happened to me. I moved here the day after I graduated high school. So I think maybe it's a little bit of a love letter to anybody that I've met along the way as well. You know, somebody who's, a lot of people come here, I think, in New York City, they come here with dreams, but also baggage. Like, I think this is the city of baggage. Everybody has their shit, and anybody you meet has it. It's why dating here is so hard. Because everybody you end up meeting is like, has you know, something going on. But I think, I don't even remember what we were originally talking about, but I think, New York City, it definitely is a character, and it adds some satisfaction to the ending when Stella, you know, comes here with the goal and achieves it.
And Danny, speaking of characters with baggage and having trouble dating in New York City, we're kind of describing Danny to a T.
Mm-hmm.
But she has some magical experiences in New York. So I'm going to let you go ahead as well.
So as for why New York, I guess two reasons. Most of I do have one small town series, but most of my books are set in cities, big cities, usually Toronto. And that's, I think, really not that much more complicated than it just being a personal thing. Like, I'm a city person, and would like to live in a bigger city than I do, but life intervenes sometimes. And I also think from a writing point of view, cities are good because anything can happen in them. You know, you need them to suddenly find themselves dressed up so they can admire each other. You can invent some kind of, you know, thing for them to go to. Whereas if you're stuck in a smaller place, everything is set. You've got a bubble world that you've built and you're stuck. So I find writing big city stuff a lot freeing, just sort of as a writer. As for New York at Christmas, this is book 2, so it was sort of, I was already, you know, boxed in. It had to be New York and Eldovia. But with book 1, I wanted to do like the 2 most tropey Christmassy places that I could. So there's Christmas in New York, and then there's Christmas in fictional Alpine micronation, kind of bookending the stories. And that's also true in this book.
And it works so well in both of them that I'm really excited for book 3, which we do get a teaser of at the end of Duke, actually. Very excited for Mr. Benz to get his
Yes.
happily ever after. I think it is time to talk about our leading male characters, because obviously Max and Aiden, I have read more gushing reviews about people's new book boyfriends. I saw someone tweet something about how bow ties had never turned them on, and now they can't stop thinking about men in bow ties. So I want to talk about your leading men in these books because they are both nice guys. And Jenny, I'm going to have you start talking with Max, because he doesn't at first seem to be a nice guy. And in A Princess for Christmas, he's our princess's best friend, but also, is he a good guy? And I love how you developed him.
I think he is. I think he is a good guy in that book. I think he, you know, really goes to bat for her and is there to help her when she needs help. This is the princess, his best friend.
I don't know why I'm calling her the princess, as if I can't give away her name. Sorry.
That's okay. The hero in a book 1. So they're supposed to be married, but they're not. You know, they're just friends, and he gracefully steps aside. So, I mean, his big thing is that he has a reputation that is well deserved as a sort of playboy, you know, ne'er-do-well kind of guy. But and he doesn't mind it. I don't think, you know, at least initially, he doesn't mind the reputation. But I think what's under that is, you know, a person kind of struggling with what's their place in the world. And I didn't want to write, even though this book is, you know, on purpose super tropey, I can't write sort of like a billionaire, you know, like who goes to space because they can kind of rich guy. So he is struggling with what it means to work and have meaning in life and where he fits in. So I guess what I'm saying is underneath all of his reputation, there's some angst that he doesn't show anyone, of course, until he meets Danny. So yeah, I mean, he is a nice guy and he just doesn't bother letting people see that, I guess, until it suddenly behooves him to.
And Aiden is almost the opposite in that he is a super nice guy, almost too nice, Tessa, almost.
Yeah, he is. I mean, again, you know, he was inspired by just kind of like the overtop, good-natured optimism of Ted Lasso. And I kind of wanted to go and dig into that. You know, Ted Lasso's backstory is a little darker than Aiden's, but he comes from a wealthy family, and his father was kind of like into his new wife. And so he sends Aiden to live down south with Aunt Edna. And so Aiden is raised by this sort of like, you know, eccentric art teacher aunt. And that's where he like learns all of his really, really just his strong principles. And he has this really just uncompromising moral compass. And so when he meets Stella, who is she's just fresh out of prison, she's like, I hate this guy. Like, I hate him. He never stops smiling. Like, he can't be real, you know? And then he just continues to prove himself over and over again to her. And he gives her a second chance, but it's so funny because he can't just give her a second chance. Like, he has to find a way for it to be fair. So he interviews basically all of the terrible applicants for the window shopping job, just so he can justify interviewing an ex-convict for the job. And it's just great the way she basically realizes halfway through the book, she's like, I actually 100% trust this person because he's shown me nothing but good judgment and care, and he's fair with everything he does. And I don't know, there's something that's so I don't know, comforting about that. And I think that's why I chose him for a Christmas book, because I think Christmas is about comfort.
And Christmas, I'm going to pull something that you just said, Tessa, about Christmas and trust, because Jenny, that's also a theme in Duke, actually, that Christmas is the time to tell the truth, I think is a line Danny says. And I wanted to just talk about that because I found that was something that resonated in both of your books, which were obviously written in completely different, spaces. And just have you both talk about that, because it was such a lovely theme that did then sort of stop and make me go through some of my favorite Christmas movies and my own thoughts about Christmas. So Jenny, I might throw it back to you.
Yeah, so Christmas is when you tell the truth is a line from Love Actually, the movie. And I guess what I like about romance as a reader and a writer is this idea that Molly O'Keefe once said that writing a romance is really about the process of characters gradually revealing vulnerabilities to each other. And that kind of stuck with me. So I guess I'm not really answering your question properly, because I think that I try to do this in every book. And I think that it doesn't necessarily get called that so overtly. I mean, I had this Love Actually hook to sort of tie it onto. But for me, that's actually what a romance is like the gradual process of two characters telling the truth about their, attraction or feelings for each other, for sure. And sometimes also about their own junk that they have to get over, the character arc that they have to go on to reach this happily ever after. I mean, really, that's what it is. It's about confronting their own truths. The Christmas just makes it like all nice and sparkly.
That's the glitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's 100%. I think that's great. What you said about Molly O'Keefe saying, it's just like, it is. It's like two characters slowly unwrapping each other. I could tie that into Christmas somehow.
Yeah.
Slowly unwrapping each other and unwrapping gifts at the same time. But yeah, I do think it is. It's like trying to find common ground. And how do they get there? Like, it's like a slow revealing of vulnerabilities. And the more you do that, the more you trust the other person, I totally agree with that 100%.
And I do think what's interesting and what can be nice is the romance aspect of it, attraction or whatever the spark is between the characters becomes sort of the motivation for the trusting. Like a lot of great romance characters are very wound up and don't trust anybody. So I do like the idea of, you meet the one person that somehow suddenly makes you want to start spilling your shit, I like that.
Yeah.
I love romance.
I do too.
So that leads me to the question about, why do you write romance? What book made you fall in love with romance and make you go, I'm a writer, or I want to be a writer, and this is what I want to write? Is there a defining moment?
Okay, I know I just talked, but this is my chance. I told them, Tessa, before we came on, that at some point I was going to make an awkward monologue about you.
Trying to
Okay,
keep
are you ready? Are you ready? So
Yes.
it's not really about you, but you have a role in it. So
Okay.
I came late to romance as a reader. I didn't read my first romance novel until I was in my 30s, like young 30s, low 30s. And I started with historical. So to begin with, to answer your question, Kayleigh, I don't know if there was one book. Somebody sent me a book, contemporary romance. Can't remember the title of it. It was a category romance. I didn't even know at the time what that meant, but in retrospect, I think it was a category romance. And because the main character shared like uncanny similarities with me, so it was a joke. And it was actually not a very good book. I can't remember the author or the title, and I wouldn't say if I did. But it like sparked enough of something that I was like, what is this? So I went to the library, discovered Harlequin historicals. And those were my like gateway to romance. Harlequin historicals, just inhaled them, loved them, but was very adamant that historical was where I belonged. And I got an agent, and my first book, she eventually did sell it, but my first book was not moving initially. And I had started reading contemporary romance in the meantime. And my gateway there was Kristen Higgins, who I loved. But my historicals were hot, were spicy. So I was talking to my agent, and I was saying, I feel like I'm kind of like a beginner here, like I need to read more. And she said, check out Entangled, I forget the name of the line, like the super hot line.
Brazen, yeah. Right.
So I don't even know what book, but I pick up like Tessa, some of your early books. And I just was like, oh my God, I have found it. And I was such a super fan that I just like fell in love with you. So,
oh, wow.
And I've never had a chance to meet you. So here I am on camera being awkward and being like, I love you. And so you were kind of my introduction to high heat contemporary romance.
Wow, that's so cool. I had no idea. I wish I knew what book it was that got you in there, but
it was like early Brazen. I'm so bad with that. Where the covers were in that era were kind of like almost they were like green.
Yeah, they like cool tones. Yeah. That's so cool. I was so honored. That's really I'm gonna live on that for a couple weeks now. That's great. I was a historical person too in the beginning. I think I had I went for 2 years where I was like, all that existed to me was sea captains. Like all I wanted to read was sea captains and stowaways, and I think Cat Martin. I want to say Cat Martin and there's got to be a ton more that I'm not thinking of. But then I found Julie Garwood. I feel like Julie Garwood is where something clicked in my head, where I was like, she always has this scene in her historicals where the hero loses the heroine. Like something happens, either he's not paying attention, and she's she has needs that he's not paying attention to, and she runs off, or she gets kidnapped or something happens and he has to go, and he's realizes how badly he's messed up and he has to go save her. She ends up saving herself usually. And that was it. Those moments where the hero loses the heroine and his heart just shatters into a million pieces, and he realizes his life will never be the same without her. That's why I write romance. For that moment, I feel like when I'm writing, I'm just racing to get there, because I'm just so excited to torture the hero. I want to torture him and make him miserable, and then just make everything okay again. But I honestly just live for those moments. That what is it, chapter 28, whatever it is. That's my special sauce.
I want to talk about, this doesn't sound dirty in my head, but it could be, but I want to talk about a different special sauce, which is your spicy contemporary romance. I feel like you have both had a lot of buzz about having contemporary Christmas rom-coms with a decently high heat level of sexy scenes. I'm being really awkward about this, and I'm not sure why. But I just wanted I just wanted to talk because all I can hear, Jenny, in the back of my head, I can hear you talking about how your dad loves Hallmark movies and that, the fact that he reads these books just makes you feel like, I think you said, like, really wish he almost wouldn't. And I wanted to
100% wish he wouldn't.
right, knowing that, reading, I mean, we all know that our parents have had some sort of intimate relationships, or else we wouldn't be here. I mean, I try not to think about it. I think my mom's watching. Hi, Mom. But let's talk about the heat in these Christmas books, because you guys both write spicy contemporaries anyways. Did you ever feel like you had to tone it down for the Christmas audience? Is the Christmas audience a different audience? Is it just your readers who expect it? Because there are some good scenes in these books, let me tell you.
I think the Christmas audience is potentially different. I think there's like a Venn diagram of people who know romance or know my books, and then there's people who just are picking up a Christmas book. And I do think that some of those people are surprised. But I also think that we are in an era, like Christmas aside, you keep asking about Christmas and I keep answering generally, but I feel like we're in an era, and I'd be interested, Tessa, to hear what you think about this, where the market has shifted toward trade paperbacks, illustrated covers, which, people, you can be for or against. I think it's great because it helps your books reach people who, rightly or wrongly, don't imagine themselves as romance readers. But I do think that a lot of people still see a illustrated cartoon cover and it doesn't prepare them for the level of spice that they might get, the way like a naked chested cover would have in the past. You know what I mean? So I have heard from these people. Like I do get, and have with other books too, I get emails from people who are mad that there is sex and swearing. I get a lot more about swearing than I do about sex, actually, interestingly. So I think the Christmas audience is slightly different, and I think the potential to surprise people is higher with a Christmas book. But I don't really, having said that, not that I don't care, but I, write what I write, and sorry,
Yeah, I don't know that I think about audience. Maybe I should think about audience more when I'm writing a book, but I'm mostly just focused on the story. It's never going to occur to me to write less spicy. I don't know. I'm just not interested. Like, I think it's a really important part of the relationship to me. Just to me, like to some people, it doesn't need to be in the book to be satisfying, but just personally for me, as a writer, it's just what interests me. I think it's something feels undone unless I write those scenes. And it just will never occur to me to not write them. So I do think I'm getting a lot of surprised people, only because we're in this like age of book talk now, and that glorious platform, and it's a lot of young readers. It's like young, they're just discovering romance, and they've never read a book from me. So they pick up this cartoon cover or something that's, seemingly really innocent, and they think they're getting kind of like, just like a cute rom-com. And we come in and knock them out with the 1-2 punch. But I think more often than not, they're pleasantly surprised. Like, I think that the new generation of readers is more vocal about what they enjoy, like sexually. I think it's not something that they're shy about. They're very vocal about it. And so I think that they're like, I think it's a positive. I think the response has been more positive than negative.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do too. I mean, I think it's like you just, you only hear from people who either love you or hate you.
Sure.
There is like a subset of people who will take the time to send you an email and tell you how much they hate you. So, yeah. But I don't pretend, that doesn't hurt my feelings or anything.
Okay, I have a question that I just want you to complete this sentence. And it can be, you can relate it to your book or just holiday romances in general. But my sentence is, it's not a holiday romance without blank.
Are you asking me?
I'm letting you both think for a second because you both look like you're thinking. But Jenny, can I put you on the spot? If you're reading,
some kind of snow-related shenanigans.
Yeah, like a snowball fight.
Yeah, there's snow angels in this one or whatever.
Yeah, or like doing it in front of the fireplace. That seems to be one. What else? Definitely some like wonderful gift giving, you know, like some unexpected gift giving, something profound.
Yeah, for me, it's like the skating, this, you know, there's a snowball fight in the first one and snow angels in this one. Next one's going to have a sleigh, like a literal sleigh ride.
Ice skating is a good one.
Yeah, I have ice skating in one of them too. Yeah, so you got to have like the little like movie montage winter stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pulling up because we do have some questions. Okay, one question, and this is always one way for all of us to grow our to be read lists. But what are you reading right now? What is a book that you are enjoying? And Tessa, I'm going to throw it over to you first.
I just finished Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma, and it was fabulous. Like I loved it. It was it's kind of like a retelling of Taming the Shrew. And it's a romance between this like businesswoman and a television doctor. And yeah, like they're both kind of under pressure to get married. It's wonderful. It's a romantic comedy coming out in March. That's the most recent one I've read. I don't have a book going at the moment, but let me think. I think I have up next. I still haven't read To Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and People We Meet on Vacation. I think those are next on my agenda.
Jenny, what about you?
I just finished Thank You Next by Andy J. Christopher. It's out, I don't know exactly when, spring. And it is, and she just told the story publicly the other day, so I don't think it's me spilling anything by saying this. It features a divorce attorney who comes home to unwind one night and sees her most recent ex-boyfriend, who swore he was never going to get married, on the show Say Yes to the Dress. And that actually happened to Andy in real life. So I just like, that's like the best origin story for a book ever. So anyway, that was a delight. It's about a divorce attorney who has been kind of on again, off again in love from afar. Like they were never together with a boy from her youth. And she's kind of thrown into this tailspin by seeing her anti-marriage ex on this show. And there's like a line in there about how he's going to marry a 25-year-old who doesn't care that she's settling for a man-child who doesn't have a bed frame or something. Like they're full of these lovely little one-liners. And she decides to go on this expedition to talk to all of her exes to find out why, because she discovers that many of her exes went on to marry the next person they dated after her. So she goes to like interview them basically and asks, you know, why she wasn't marriage material, and he tags along. So that's a delight. I also just finished, I'm super late to this one, but I just finished Second First Impressions from Sally Thorne, which I think was out early this past year. And I loved that. I mean, I loved The Hating Game. I've loved all her books, but to me, this was her triumph. I adored it.
I loved it
Can't
too.
recommend it highly enough.
Teddy.
Pardon?
I loved it too.
Like,
the
like
hero
the
of Teddy,
turtles.
like, there's nobody, I've never read a hero like that. Like who's so like endearing, but also sexy. You know, like he was like, I don't know how to describe him. He was like, he needed to be taken care of, like, but he was also like really hot.
But he was kind of self-aware about the fact that he needed to be taken care of, you know, like he didn't have any self-delusions about his what he was doing. I don't know.
Helplessness, yeah. Yeah, it was a wonderful book.
Many good books. And I think, Kayleigh, you're asking what book was that about, the divorce attorney? Veronica.
Oh, it's called.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jen. I was just going to say Veronica's really good. Sorry.
I know. All right, I'll say it. It's called Thank You Next by Andy J. Christopher.
And Veronica's really good at grabbing all the titles, and she will send everything to everyone. So don't worry if you're scribbling and can't get it. Thank You Next just keeps putting the song in my head every time I've heard it come up.
Yeah, this is Thank You, Y-O-U, but.
I just lost. Okay, I have a question from Ali who says, I love reading your holiday books, but what are you both currently working on and what comes out next? So obviously you write more than holiday books. Tessa, tell us about your next book.
So my next release is Hook, Line, and Sinker. It's coming out in March. It's the follow-up book to It Happened One Summer. So we're going back to the fishing town of Westport, and we're going to read about the Piper's younger sister. And so it's a friends to lovers, forced proximity rom-com that I absolutely can't wait to share. I just love it. And I'm working right now on I'm calling it a crime-ance novel, because I'm combining my love of true crime with hot contemporary romance. So I'm writing like a murder mystery where the hero and the heroine are like actively falling in love on the page, and it's a lot of page time, because I think I love romantic suspense, but I feel like I never get enough of the hero and heroine falling in love in romantic suspense. So I just think what I'm just trying to do is I'm writing a contemporary romance with a strong thread of suspense in the background. And it's called My Killer Vacation. I don't think I've told anybody that. But so I'm going to try and put it out in the summertime of next year.
2 books to look forward to. Jenny, can you add to our list of books to look forward to?
Yeah, I'm not having another book out till next fall, and that is the third and last Christmas book. I think it's going to be called So This Is Christmas. I don't know if I've told anybody that either. It is about Mr. Benz, the uptight, starchy equerry to the throne, who is very resistant to change, tradition-bound, old before his time, kind of fuddy-duddy, and the American management consultant that's hired to come in and overhaul. Aldovia is a one-industry country, and that industry's luxury watches is in decline. So she's going to drop in to bust some heads, lay some people off, overhaul things. And he's got a kind of babysitter and show her around. So that's in the fall. And then after that, in that spring, which is going to be 2023, I have a standalone book coming out called Canadian Boyfriend, which is about an American woman who has a passing, as a teenager, before the events of the book, has a passing flirtation with a boy that she meets at the Mall of America. She's working there, and he's a visiting hockey player from Canada. They're both teenagers, and she sort of projects on him and invents like a fake version of him that she pretends that he's her boyfriend, and it gets her out of sticky social situations. She's got a lot going on. And then the book starts when she, as only happens in romance novels, meets him again in real life. And he's not behaving the way he's supposed to. He's not behaving the way her imaginary Canadian boyfriend would.
Love that. That sounds great.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple more questions. I have a fun one from Catherine, who is saying, she's assuming you did not necessarily write these 2 books that came out during the proper Christmas season. And so what is it like to immerse yourself in the holidays outside of, the typical Christmas season? What did you do to get yourself in the holiday mood? And Tess, I know you wrote yours kind of, fallish, isn't late summer, fall, right?
Yeah, I think I wrote it in the summertime. I don't know. I think we have to put ourselves in all kinds of different moods at any given moment, and so I don't know, I don't think it was that hard. I think I just, once you're kind of writing and you have the scene in your head and you have the atmosphere and the setting, and you can go pretty much anywhere. We write books in different countries or different states or fishing villages or and so I've never been to a fishing village. I mean, not really. So you just kind of I don't know, it's something you really just visualize, and then you can just go. And that's kind of been my saving grace during this pandemic, is kind of being able to transport myself to all different kinds of places and times from my home. So yeah, I didn't really have to do much immersing. It really just it's just kind of, it just, thankfully I have an imagination that can bring me there when I need to go.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of wasn't an issue. Mine were due October 1st each year, so I felt like I was kind of landing the plane as Christmas was ramping up, which was fine. But I will say that I have always had this quirk where I usually don't like to write to music, but sometimes I just get in the mood for music, but I can't write to music with lyrics. So I just like play instrumentals. But going way back years and years, my favorite music to write to, don't laugh at me, is, do you know Mannheim Steamroller?
Yeah.
Okay, so they are like electronica Christmas music, and they are the best to write to any time of the year. And I've done that like my entire career. So I I saw a few ships come sailing. It's very like peppy, and it gets you like in the mood to write. So I just like ramped up with Mannheim Steamroller, that I always do for all my books.
I'm smiling because you're making me think, Jenny. When I was in grad school, I had one of my advisors, I was struggling to write my thesis, and he told me to write to Christmas music because there's something about the beat of Christmas music that helps with writing. And I don't know if he was telling me it just to pull my leg, because I was willing to basically sacrifice goats to write my thesis, but
I don't know, there might be something to that, because I keep trying to get the Spotify rhythm to get me something like the Mannheim Steamroller Christmas album to write to, and it never quite hits the same. But Mannheim Steamroller is like so cheesy and like synthy and like, I don't know, but I've never been able to reproduce it. So
Boney M was mine, their Christmas album. Okay, we have a couple more questions that I do want to get to. And one is another book recommendation from you of, if people are still putting holiday romances, they're still reading more holiday romances, what is a holiday romance that isn't yours, but that you recommend is a good read, that like, if they like your kind of holiday romance?
I don't read them. I don't have a recommendation. I don't know. I don't really read Christmas romance. I don't know. Is that weird that I wrote one and I don't really read it? Definitely Duke, actually.
I'll bail you. I have one. I don't think it's weird. I often, oh, my light is going weird. I often don't. Yeah, I mean, I get this. I get that sentiment about you're not really reading what you're writing. But the best Christmas romance of all time, in my opinion, is an older one called A Christmas Gone Perfectly Wrong by Cecilia Grant, who I don't think she's writing anymore. I think she only wrote 2 or 3 books, but it is beautiful. It's I don't know if it's a novella or a short novel. It's a Regency. It's about a guy trying to get home for Christmas, and he has to chaperone the daughter of some friends to this house party that's on the way. So it's one of those books where like not a lot happens, but it's just beautiful. It's one of those books where you have to kind of stop and slow down and like just let it sink into you. It's so wonderful.
I have one. I just thought of one. Okay. So this is going back like 100 years, but I read a book, I think it's called All Through the Night by Suzanne Brockman. And it's part of the Troubleshooter series. And it's the first male book I ever read. And it's Robin and Jules. Robin is a movie star and Jules is an FBI agent. And yeah, that novella, it's a Christmas novella. And it's the first love story I'd ever written, I read between two men. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know, it was so emotional and I loved it. And I don't know, it was just, it felt so different than anything I'd ever read before in a good way. And it kind of opened me up to a whole different, just a whole different experience with romance. And I've always been grateful for that book, but that's the only one that's just coming to mind right now, but it's one of my favorites.
Can I just say that what I love about romance is that we can be like, yeah, it's about a movie star and an FBI agent. And everyone's like, yeah.
No one blinks, right?
No, yeah, of course it is.
It's totally plausible.
If anyone is interested, Jenny, your romance Christmas rec is apparently free on Amazon right now. So
A Christmas Gone Perfectly Wrong. Cannot recommend it enough. It's fast too. You can read it on Christmas Eve.
I have one last question, and this is from this is more of a craft question. We're going to end with a hard question, because that's how we should do it. What did you struggle most with writing this book?
Do you want me to go first?
Tessa,
You go
I'm
first.
gonna throw it, or Tessa,
Oh,
Sorry. Yes, you go.
No, you go. You go.
What did I struggle most with? This is kind of a crappy answer, but this book was pretty easy to write, which is not normal for me. So this book was not very hard to write. I think the biggest struggle with this book was not about this book. It was about writing it at home during the pandemic with everybody around me and the sort of relentless gnawing anxiety of pandemic times. So the circumstances in which I wrote this book were less than ideal, but the book itself was one of those magical ones that you wish you could repeat, but I couldn't and didn't. But it kind of came easily.
Yeah, I think there was two things that were a little bit of a struggle. One was that Stella, the main character, she has a friend who's she has a kind of a toxic relationship with. This friend that basically they committed this crime together and then they went to prison together, and this friend has had a hold on her since she was in middle school and she doesn't know how to separate herself from that. So I think one of the things I just really wanted to handle that delicately, and because she obviously has to make a change. So that was kind of hard. I don't know if I've written a dynamic like that before. And the other one was that the hero Aiden is her boss, and my inclination is just to have them screw the rules, just go for it, but that wasn't Aiden's character. Aiden was by the book, just very staunch, just a strong moral compass type of man, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't do that without the proper paperwork and the conversation that took place to make their relationship ethical. So yeah, just putting a leash on myself basically for that situation. That was hard too, but mostly it was a joy to write.
Jenny, Tessa, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for answering our audience questions. And thank you for giving us these two glorious books that feel like such a delightful treat after getting through 2021, having these characters in our life. I will admit I cried at the end of both of them. Happy, good tears. So as a reader, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a delight.
Yes, thanks for having me as well. It was so great to be here.
We can't wait to have you again. Ronnie, I'm going to let you come back on before you.
Thank you, Kayleigh, for running such a fabulous event, and thank you, Tessa and Jenny, and the audience in Idea Exchange. I've been looking forward to this talk for a long time because I love holiday books, and I love the added spice that is in your books. It's a nice change from those traditional kind of Hallmarky books. So thank you, and we can't wait to see what you write next. I have written down all of those books that they recommended. I also put up, I will also include Tessa and Jenny's website information. They're on social media, so find them on Insta. I think Twitter and Facebook. I think both of you are more active on Instagram, though. I think that is probably where you both kind of do most of your posting. That's where most people post now. So check out their Instagram page. And thank you very much for joining us tonight, everybody. We'll see you in 2022.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Have a